Welcome back to Thompson to Clark. Brad Evans and Double G here. I think this is the first time outside of like a playoff recap where we've gone midweek. Like Wednesday midweek is kind of weird. It feels a little weird going during the middle of the week here.
Yeah, but in the off season, is there really a middle of the week in the off season? I mean, it doesn't even feel like it half the time because you could get news at Saturday morning at 8. You could get news of, Wednesday night at 2:00 in the morning. So who even knows anymore, man?
Yeah. And what was funny was last week when we did our show, right smack dab in the middle of doing the show, the news comes out that Brandon Belt is going to the Blue Jays. So we weren't even able to really respond or talk about Belt at all because it was just sort of news in the middle of our show.
Yeah.
We mentioned the news. We put it, we did the show and then it happened. So it's now a week later, and we will talk about Belt on this show. So that'll be good. But you know what is interesting, and we're getting a little bit of like inside podcasting here. I hate it when everyone calls everything inside baseball.
Yes, is that a new thing? Because it is throwing me off. I can't remember. I was reading an article and somebody said it's a little inside baseball. I was like, no, this is an article about submarines. What are you talking about? This has nothing to do with baseball.
Exactly. Why don't it should be inside and then the subject that we're talking about?
Yeah.
So we also have a YouTube channel, and subscribe if you haven't. It's growing slowly, but the views that we get on some of these clips have been fantastic. And so I was like, well, we have the news. We might as well just put that little segment of us talking about Belt out there. A lot of people probably hadn't had the opportunity to do that. So we put it out there, and it's like the most viewed thing that we have on the YouTube page. So that was cool. But we did, like I said, we didn't get to talk about it. We didn't get to talk about our memories. So just bam, smack dab in the middle of the show, it happened. And then we just mentioned the scenario. But now that we've had some time to think about it, ultimately, how are you left feeling about one Brandon Belt going to Toronto? And while we're doing this for the video folks, I'll share some photos, our photoshops one last time that we put on Twitter and on the Instagram of Belt, since we won't be able to use them anymore. So I'll just randomly insert them during the show while we're talking about Belt.
Yeah, it's tough, man. Anytime you lose a Giants great, it's really tough, man, because you kind of feel like you knew it was coming, but you always feel like when it happens in the offseason like this, and it hasn't happened to the Giants a whole lot, because with Hunter Pence, with Pablo Sandoval, they were DFA'd in the middle of a season. So you kind of knew it was coming, kind of had that chance to say goodbye. With Brandon Belt, there was always that, I wonder if he'll be back next year, because they still need a first baseman. And they still need a first baseman. Even after even after they let Brandon Belt walk, they still need a first baseman.
Okay, so you're not sold on Lamont Wade Jr. as your everyday first baseman in the starting lineup. Opening day 2023.
Yeah, so I sent you and Hot Take Bry and JJ and our text group, I sent you guys a 2023 positions. I had to put them down myself on digital paper just so I could see it again with my own eyes, type it out, and say catcher Bart, first base Lamont Wade Jr., second base Estrada, third base VR, shortstop Crawford, left field Conforto, center field Yaz, right field Haniger. And in PG terms, I said, does this excite you in any way, shape, or form? Does this get you guys excited? And there was a whole lot of not so much.
I mean, it doesn't, especially when you look at the two lineups of the teams ahead of the Giants in the National League West.
Exactly. And you have to look at these positions too, and you have to say that is a lot of hope and a prayer. A lot of, gosh, I hope they have a better season than they did last year. Farhan is very high on Lamont Wade Jr. I don't know if that is because they don't have any other options at first base, but he's high on Lamont Wade Jr., so the organization is. Had the injuries last year, and I love the guy. I absolutely love the guy. I love him as a fourth outfielder. I don't know if I love him as a starting first baseman, especially against lefties. So they're gonna have to get creative at first base. Because just a couple of years ago, 2020. Ooh, look at that. Just a couple of years ago, Lamont Wade Jr. was part of, the Giants' first base conglomerate that hit 48 home runs collectively. Brandon Belt had 29 of those in the 107 win season. And they're thinking he can bounce, Lamont Wade Jr. can bounce back from the knee injury last year. They like where his swing is at and everything else. I don't know, man. It's kind of tough. So to see Belt go away, and like you said it yourself too in our chat group, you said, hey, all Brandon Belt has to do is be Brandon Belt, but Lamont Wade Jr. has to hit like 20 plus home runs and probably hit 280, play some really, really good defense at first base for us to say, okay, that was a good decision. And really, what are the odds of that happening? And again, as a Giants fan, we're the optimistic kind. This is kind of an optimistic podcast. I'll buy a Lamont Wade Jr. jersey if he hits 320 in March and April. I'll go buy.
I mean, he might be the one to buy, right? Because you can't buy a Conforto jersey because he's going to leave.
That's
after
true.
That might be a Wade. Yeah.
You can you say you can even buy a Bart jersey right now? I don't even know. I don't even think you could. I mean, you
might be able to buy a Harrison jersey the second he debuts in the bigs. That was a little bit of a tease. We'll talk about him. Near the end of the show. But you're 100% right. Now, when we talked about this during the Judge chase and the Correa chase, which is finally over, Minnesota Twins, he's back with the Twins after all that drama. The idea behind this lineup was we were like, okay, this lineup is fine as long as it's wrapped around a stud. If this lineup is wrapped around Aaron Judge, I'm in. If this lineup is wrapped around Carlos Correa, I'm in. And it's not. So that is the missing hole in this, which is like you have all of these very nice supplemental pieces, but you don't have the main event. You don't have the climax of the lineup in there. And it's unfortunate because they did. I've been very negative on the whole thing on Judge and on Correa, but you can say the Giants are great at adding supplemental pieces, right? They will find the one player who is possibly frowned upon by 20 of the other GMs, and all of a sudden the Giants can find the good usage out of him. That is great, and I enjoy that part of it. But you also have to do the other thing, which is reel in the big fish or create your own big fish. Right? If you can create your own big fish, then that takes care of the problem. They haven't been able to do either. And so that's why this lineup, when you sent it out today, I was just like, it's unless there is somebody who's going to sit in the middle in the 3 or the 4 hole and bang out 30 jacks. If you have that, and then you give me Haniger and Conforto and Bart and Lamont Wade and Baby Yaz, then I'm like, okay, like those guys are really good on the outskirts of the lineup, but we're missing the one in the middle. And I know some people are going to say, well, what if Conforto hits 30 jacks and hits 300? Great, because he's going to be gone next year.
Exactly. and in that lineup, I didn't talk about Jock Peterson because this is positional.
Yeah, they didn't list the DH.
Yeah, he's going to be 110, maybe 120 game DH this year against righties. So it's one of those things. And Jock Peterson, he's going to be batting 3rd or 4th or 5th. But again, I mean, the Giants did this 2 years ago and they won 107 games, and everybody goes, well, that was luck. It was all this, blah, blah, blah. Everybody had career years. Yeah, they did, but that's baseball.
Yeah,
that's inside baseball. No, but that's baseball, and that happens sometimes. And I mean, if the Giants, they like to win games. They like to go out and put out a competitive lineup, but they don't like to pay the price to put out an uber competitive lineup that you could put down on paper and say, this is a lineup that's going to go out and crush, 95 wins. The Giants don't do that. I mean, we'll talk about the arbitration later, and, a lot of those arbitration cases, those are starters. I mean, we're talking, these are all starters in arbitration cases this year. When a lot of times it's kind of a mix. It's a mix of starters, bench players, whatnot, kind of fill in guys. But they our arbitration cases, those are starters. The Giants like to keep that payroll low. They like to put money in big contracts for a year or two, then let you walk. And this is what they're doing. I mean, you're running out. You're looking at VR. You're looking at Estrada. You're looking at Lamont Wade Jr. You're looking at Bart. And those guys are and Yaz. I mean, those guys are all controllable players. Yeah. It's 5 of those 9 guys, 5 of those 8 guys that are controllable, that are going to be on the field in the starting lineup probably on opening day.
Yeah, and some people disagree with you and say, "Well, Brad, they were about to throw $300 million at Aaron Judge and Correa, and that at least that was the offer." But until they do it, you're right. They like to sit beneath the luxury tax and find these players on the fringe and all these guys. They're the highest waiver wire team in the league, or at least one of them. So
yeah. And they could have been up there. They could have been up there with Gossman. They could have been up there with Rodon. They could have thrown a pitch to Verlander. I mean, there's ways to do it, but they won't do it with pitching. And that is again, optimistic podcast. We love our Giants and we're always rooting for them. But that is my one knock against this this front office is I want to see. I don't mind money being thrown at pitchers, even if the back end of the deal is going to be rough. That's just the way it is. Samardzija, Cueto. I mean, we've seen it before, but I mean, Gossman was dealing. Rodon was dealing. I mean, fans would have been happy to say, we don't care what it's going to look like in 5 years or 4 years. We saw what they did this year. And then you run this lineup out there with Webb, Rodon, Gossman, and then Harrison coming up. That's a nasty 4. If you could have gone that route, I mean, they've got the money to do it. So a lot of what ifs, a lot of, what if we didn't chase the big bats and instead chase the arms? Because now we don't have either. But,
well, I mean, theoretically, you could do both. Like you could. They have money to do both. So circling back to Belt, and your main argument was Wade is great as somebody who you don't really depend on day in and day out. He's going to surprise you. He's late night. But when he is going to be counted upon to carry a heavy load, you're a little bit more scared in that expectation. And when you have Brandon Belt, he's 270 with 25 jacks if he's healthy. No, bottom at the bottom at the minimum.
Yeah,
so yeah. So I was thinking, what were some of the moments that you remembered about about Belt? Some just some thoughts on favorite Belt moments. There's the very familiar to Giants fans when they did that one Showtime episode, right? When Bochy brings him up to the team and he asks Belt if he wants a beer and all that. Like a lot of people remember that. But what about you? Are there like memorable moments that you can think back on with Belt?
I as a collective, I was always a huge fan of the guy's eye. I mean, that's something that's hard to replace, and the Giants value heavily. So I'm kind of surprised there wasn't a 1-year, $9 million, $10 million deal to bring him back. They value that heavily. But obviously I think the number one, anytime you think about Brandon Belt, is you think of 2014, October 4th, 18 innings, comes up in the 18th inning and just drops a bomb into the upper deck in Washington. Giants are in danger of going, I think, back to San Francisco, tied 1-1, but instead they go back to San Francisco up 2-0 against Washington. And this is 2014. This is a team that, kind of fought through the playoffs, all through the World Series. There's probably, I don't know. I don't know if the Giants get out of that round if Belt's heroics don't come through in that game. He was 0 for 6 in that game before he hit that home run. So it's not like he was having a lights out game before that, but it was only a 1-1 game in the 18th. So nobody was really doing anything.
To kind of go back to what you said about why they didn't bring him back for 1 year, I kind of thought about this, and they're going to have to say goodbye to Brandon Crawford at the end of this year.
Yeah.
And I wonder if they thought having to say goodbye to both guys at the end of 2023 was going to be hard. But here's my counter to that, which is you have the year to say goodbye to both guys. Like we didn't get a chance to say goodbye to Belt. Belt had the thing
Right.
with Kruk and Kipe at the end of the year where, he had the conversation about if he's not back and how he thought they were the best, and they thanked him for getting 2 rings. And like, that was the moment. We don't have this other moment, which we're going to have with Crawford, which is last home game, right?
Yes.
That Derek Jeter moment in New York where he goes out there that one last time. They could have done that both with Belt and Crawford, and by not re-signing Belt, and that number that they had, that Belt signed for, that was not a big number in any way.
No.
Like $9 million. They paid him 20 some odd million last year. That, you just look at it and you go, oh, it's just a 2-year, $30 million contract. No big deal. But that's the thing that bothers me the most. I mean, I'm somewhat bothered. I understand this is a business. I understand the business of baseball. Don't worry. But that goodbye, like, we didn't get that with Bumgarner, right? Like, he was a free agent and then he left. I think we should have been able to get that with both Belt and Crawford. I appreciate Crawford. We'll be able to do that with him this year. And I don't imagine they're going to want to extend him. And who knows what his body is feeling like these days. Who knows what his emotions are feeling like these days, though. Carlos Correa did say that he texted with Crawford when he fake signed with us. I thought that was pretty interesting because all we heard was that Zadie didn't even tell Crawford that, like, Correa was in the mix. So that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, exactly. And then, I read that entire, I think they transcribed the interview. It was Rosenthal wrote the article, and The Athletic interviewed Carlos Correa, and there's the captain, Maverick.
Maverick.
I don't
think
we'll
show the captain pretty soon.
And I don't think it was pretty interesting, the stuff that Correa had to say about I called Crawford and told him, look, I'll be playing shortstop, and you'll have to move to third. I mean, he didn't say it in those words, but I think it was kind of a given that this was going to happen, and there's things we can learn from each other. But then when he talked about when he signed with the Mets, he said he called Lindor and said, "I'm moving to third. I'm not going to step on your toes." Blah 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 blah. You go, what was that, man?
Exactly.
So I just don't know how well of a fit it would have been with Correa in San Francisco, especially for that long. I think it was just kind of one of those. I think it was so much of a letdown from Judge, because that would have been a fit. Hometown kid in San Francisco. Giants haven't had a bomber since, Barry Bonds. And then Correa was kind of the, ho-hum. We've heard all this stuff about him, but
a Judge is the big splash coming off the MVP season. He's like the one you chase, but I sort of secretly felt pretty good about Correa as the backup plan because he was younger and because he played a very important position defensively, and he's really good at it. So even if he didn't hit the 50 bombs like Judge, you're like, okay, but he plays really good shortstop, and you can depend on that for the next 6 years or whatever. So I really liked the fit, and it like that whole thing where you talk about his personality and how he treated those two situations differently. Also, he's got a relationship with Lindor. He sort of sees
Yeah.
Lindor a little bit as kind of like a bigger brother or a cousin or something. He doesn't have that with Beecraw. But where that comes in is if you believe in Kapler, right? If you believe in the Gabe Kapler experiment and how he can manage these adults with human emotions, like that's where you go, hey, this is why Cap is here, is because he's really good at this. And I think that they would have figured that piece out. But not telling Crawford was kind of weird. But like, you know what? I was so interested for those. How long did we have them? Like few
7
days,
days.
7 days.
7 days, yeah.
Oh, I was talking myself into B Craw being like a Gold Glove third baseman. Like I was just
Oh,
like,
we all were, yeah.
I want to see it. I want to see
Yeah.
him show everybody that his defensive skills will translate to the hot corner, and that's just how good he is.
Well,
But
I was excited for the games that we would have seen. I don't know, maybe 10 to 15 to 20 of these games where Correa's at second and Crawford's at short. And then you just have this, dirty two vacuums in the middle of the field, just sucking up ground balls. Anything hit on the ground up the middle, you just got it, taken care of. So I was thinking, oh, that'd be kind of cool to see that. And the left side of the infield would have been awesome. But yeah, I was looking forward to that middle of the infield. Just try to hit something by us and see what happens.
yeah, look at us trying to talk about Carlos Correa still.
Yeah.
I imagine we're gonna follow. We'll probably follow him just because
Yeah.
of the whole thing. I'm rooting for the guy. I hope he does well. I don't want to see him have a bum ankle or anything.
Well, and that's the whole thing is, to talk about the ankle, and this was telling in the interview as well when he said, I think they asked him, with the ankle, are you going to do anything going forward? Because he's crazy about conditioning. Correa doesn't drink during the season. He's hardcore about baseball. He just loves the game and puts everything into it, which is fantastic. That's what, as us fans, that's what we want. And he said, yes, I'm going to pay more attention to my ankle and really work on that and condition it better and make sure it lasts a long time. So it must be in the back of his mind now that, okay, this doctor said there's a good chance, 8 years down the line, not so much the beginning of the contract, but from like 8 to 10 years from now, the ankle is not going to hold up. That's what he said. They told him the ankle may not hold up in 8 to 10 years. So now it's in the back of his mind. He's really going to be working on that. But of course, I want to see him play out his full 10 years in Minnesota and be totally fine. That's what, obviously, as a fan, that's what you want. He's an exciting player. I don't want to see, well, I'd like to see Minnesota win something, especially if it's against LA in a World Series down the line. But that would be about it. I mean, Minnesota, I give or take. I had a buddy who was a huge Twins fan growing up, and all he would talk about is Kent Herbeck.
Kent Herbeck over Kirby.
Oh my gosh, it was Kent Herbeck was his guy, and he named his dog Herbie, and not Kirby. He named his dog Herbie for Kent Herbeck. It was this little wiener dog. But anyway, so that's really the Twins, and then of course Little Big League. Can't forget Little Big League.
Oh yeah, this is a good
movie in Minnesota, and the glad bags on the wall. But yeah, now it's Target Field, and you got, what is that, sandstone all over the place? I don't know. Beautiful stadium.
Last thing about the Correa situation is we've sort of blended the Correa and the belt thing together. The story that they went to the same doctor that the Giants talked to.
Yes.
When it came to ultimately examining those medicals. And so of course the Mets were like, yeah, the doctor to the Mets said the same thing that he said to the Giants, and that had them back off. And it's interesting. I mean, why?
Yeah.
Not to say why would you, like, the way that I would look at it is, okay, we have that doctor's expertise. How about we get a second opinion? Not the same opinion, but the second opinion. They didn't do that. But yeah, so that was the other interesting piece of the story. And then, we talked about this last week. Zadie pretty much said that the Giants were out on it. So it was either Judge and Boris being out on the Giants, or they still wanted a much longer deal than the Giants were willing to work on. So whatever. It's
Yeah.
it's the business of baseball again. The Giants seem to be getting the raw end of these deals, which is so frustrating as a Giants fan. They can try and make it up with Juan Soto and Shohei coming up, but man, if I'm those guys, I look at those rosters. Unless Luciano comes up and he's playing well, and Harrison comes up and he's playing well, and Matos has all of a sudden reinvented himself, and all these guys who are Grant McCray and all these other guys in the next few years, like I don't know, I don't see the carrot that the Giants could even dangle to get Shohei to give them even more than a glance.
It's gonna have to be it's gonna have to be through trades. I mean, they're gonna have to get a guy or two through trades, and then from there, show Shohei that, look, man, we're trying to win, and this is a great place to play, and it's San Francisco, and you could battle against LA and San Diego, however many times a year, and you're gonna be on the big screen like everywhere you go in the National League West. You'll get a little dry in Arizona. It's a very boring place to play. But other than that, you're going to hit a lot of home runs in Colorado.
Yeah.
You're gonna, so I mean, there's ways to pitch it, but it's going to be tough. If you're the Mets, you're going up against the Mets and the Dodgers and the Yankees and maybe even the Rangers. I mean, it's going to be a tough pitch for the Giants next year.
All right, let's finish up on the captain here. I reached out to some friends just to see if they wanted to share their memories. And one of my buddies, Brian Ruano, he said, I don't remember the specific year, but he caught a foul ball in the first game of a playoff series and fell into the stands. And after, he said he smelled like beer the whole game. That quote might have actually been in Andy Baggerly's. He wrote a nice story on Belt, and it was just based on a lot of Belt's quotes. And then Brian also mentioned the Bochy moment on that Showtime series that the Giants had. As far as me, my favorite Belt moment, I'm not sure if other than the one that you mentioned in the playoffs, which is a great, fantastic one. Hitting the home run off of Kershaw, or getting the hit off of Kershaw. Did he hit a home run off of Kershaw? I forget. What was his that? There was like a early game. Maybe he got Kershaw once, and then
I don't.
never got a hit against him ever again.
I don't even know if he ever hit a home run off of him.
Let's see this Belt.
I'm gonna have to look up these numbers now.
So there's a fun website called StatMuse.
Yeah, there it is.
And so, okay, it wasn't a home run. Maybe it was just that first game. I want to say it was his first game he ever had to play in the big leagues was against Kershaw. But overall, 4 for 62 with 4 walks and 30 strikeouts against Kershaw. Only extra base hit was a double. 0.65 with a 0.134 OBP and a 0.81 slugging historically against Kershaw. I feel like that first game he ever played against Kershaw, he got an infield hit or something, and then just got destroyed ever since then.
Yeah,
they would just not play him anymore against Kershaw.
It was ugly. It was like it was like John Kruk against Randy Johnson lifetime in that. I mean, that was just his tough career against Kershaw. Everybody, I mean, pretty much any left-hander against Kershaw has had a tough time historically, but just the fact that Belt had to face him so many times in his career because of being in the National League West, it just amplified things and made it really ugly.
Yeah. I'm just trying to say, the thing about being a Belt fan was you were just constantly having to defend him in scenarios. But I think that my favorite moment is just how light he took a lot of that criticism and how fun he was. Like these last 2 years where he did the whole captain routine, and he he was totally doing satire. Some people took it seriously, but he was obviously not being serious. Just
Yeah.
the whole, hey, Buster's gone. We need somebody to kind of step up here, and why not it be me? And then he went and had that fantastic that fantastic season before he got hurt. He was killing the baseball. He was doing
Yeah.
so many great things until he got hurt. And that is and it ended in an unfortunate way, at least for Giants fans. And I'm rooting for the guy in Toronto. I want to see him do well.
Yeah.
So
And more than anything, I think that killed the Giants' chances against the Dodgers in that,
he would have been some help,
2021
sure.
series. Yeah, I mean, it was just brutal. It was brutal. But yeah, the electrical. We should all put electrical tape C's on our chest for our first show of the season in honor of the captain.
Exactly. Yeah, that would be great. They should just have like every Giants jersey should just have a C on it for belt.
That would be great.
All right, let's move on. What did you think of? Now, this is hard because we are not Roger Munter, who writes about this stuff on a regular basis. But the Giants signed. The international signing period happened, and they're leading their class was a young player by the name of how do you pronounce his first name?
Rainer
Rainer
Arias.
Rainer Arias. He
Or
is
Arias, it depends. I haven't actually heard it spoken yet. So
they signed him to a $2.8 million bonus. He is an outfielder from the Dominican, 6'2", 185. They have been watching him. I read something that like since he was like 14 years old, they had scouts watching him, which is so crazy to me because I have 13-year-olds in this household. I can't imagine somebody was scouting them to play sport. It's crazy.
They're checking to see how good they are at Minecraft.
Exactly.
You guys are excellent.
These guys barely comb their hair before they go to school. Like I can't imagine.
They're not raking home runs. What are you talking about?
Man, so I'm helping coach their youth basketball team, and man, talk about a band of misfits like the 2010 Giants. This basketball team, it's like from the top to the bottom. Like the best player is this kid who's he's probably about 6'1" and he's 14 years old. He's got like tons of facial hair, and
I was gonna say, does he have a mustache?
he was like palming the basketball, and I was like, "Oh, you can palm the basketball." I was like, "All right, so let me see your hand." And so his hand is like already bigger than mine. And then you go all the way to the other side, where there's a kid who's clearly never played basketball like competitively in his life, and so this is all new to him. So it's just like the range of like good, the players who are gonna do well and gonna enjoy the season, and the ones who we're just gonna try and make sure that they get their money's worth here. But yeah,
well, I loved that. I loved coaching baseball at that age, the little league age and stuff like that, because I always took those kids, the ones who are like, and they threw the ball, they'd wind up to throw, and then the ball would go out behind them instead of forward. And you're like, are you a right-hander or a left-hander? And the parents are like, I don't know. This is the first time he's ever picked up a baseball. So it was always fun to get those kids. And then by the end of the season, one of them gets a knock. And you're like, that was it, man. That kid, the stands are going crazy because the parents have watched these kids all year. So those are the moments you live for. It's not, at those levels, as too, it's not winning, losing. It's can you get better from game one to game, whatever it is, the final game of the season.
And baseball's the cruelest one out of all the sports because you have some kids who are deathly afraid of getting hit. And those are the ones who get hit the most. It's so cruel. Gosh, when Brian and Jay were probably, they would have been 11, 12. And so we had a kid who was like the local high school principal's son. Not an athletic bone in this poor kid's body. But, you just wanted to try and get him to even just be brave, right? To figure out how to pick up a fly ball, catch it, crow hop, make a throw that was like somewhat close to second base. But we're just trying to get him to be comfortable in that box, and he's so deathly afraid of the ball. And I think he led the team in hit by pitches. It was so
Oh no,
cruel. So
that's a pretty good on base percentage.
oh man, but yeah, the short wait, so Bags had him as okay, Bags had Cuban shortstop Anthony Tandrone as also joining the team, but Arias is only 16 years old.
That's amazing.
Where does he I know that they have so many different levels of the minors, but where does the 17-year-old kid go and play the first stop?
Well, the article I was reading, it pretty much said he's going to be here in the States for a couple of weeks. Then the Giants, scouts and coaches will evaluate and decide, is he going to go back to their international facility, get some more work, or will he stay here in the States and then join, what are the orange and black teams? Do they still have those? Kind of the rookie teams, the lower level teams, and then start there and kind of see where he goes from there. Well, apparently his father was in the Detroit Tigers minor league organization back in the day, and now he's currently a scout down in Texas, I think, for the Rangers. And he's been a scout for 10 plus years. So, and that was one of the reasons for the Giants, giving this kid 2.8 million, because they knew the family was a baseball family. They knew it was a good family that was very invested in this child and this kid. I say child, I mean, they got 16 years old. I have a 16-year-old.
Yeah.
And, half the time I can't even, trust her to put her laundry from the washer to the dryer. And this kid's getting 2.8 million. So I hope she doesn't. She's probably right on the other side of the wall listening to me. But I'm going to get an earful after this. But yeah, so I think that was one of the reasons too, is said we can give this guy 2.8 million because the family this is a baseball family, and they know how the major leagues work and they know what it takes. So it's a good investment overall. The 20-80 scale in baseball, 80 being the highest, 20 being the lowest. Right now, his hit is 55, his power is 55, his run is 50, his arm is 50, and his fielding is 50. So this is a great start for this kid who's 16 years old. Lucky Luciano Marco Luciano got 2.6 million from the Giants in 2018. And then last year, Ryan Reckley from the Giants got 2.2 million. So this is the highest they've paid since the great Lucius Fox.
Yeah, Lucius Fox. He was in the bigs, right?
Yeah, I think he only played in 10 games last year with Washington, but I think as bad as Washington is right now, he's going to get a fair shot at making the big club out of spring this year for sure.
So I looked at the Ryan Reckley minor league baseball page here. So this time last year, they obviously signed Reckley to a minor league contract. They assigned him to the DSL Giants Orange. And then in July, he got hurt. And so he got put on the 7-day. And then in August, they changed it from the 7-day to the 60-day. So his entire minor league career thus far was only 11 games, 36 at-bats, 7 hits, and a 194 batting average, but he got hurt. So he had a shortened first season as a minor league player.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. These are always fun to look at. You just kind of look at it, glance at it, and go, oh, well, that's cool. Well, he's 16. I mean, let's check back in 4 years when he's closer to, single A, double A, and then go from there. But it's always exciting. I mean, the Giants are putting money into the international players. I mean, how many did they sign? There was a list of, it had to be like 15 or so players that they signed this time around.
It was, I had the number here, unless I killed it. 23.
23. Okay. Yeah. And then also, I think a South Korean player, a pitcher who had Tommy John. But he is a big dude, 6'4", throws like mid-90s. So they put money into him as well. So yeah, it's going to be exciting. The Giants they're really trying to build the minor league system, and this does nothing but help. I mean, down the line, because again, you have trade pieces. Look at Lucius Fox. So if the Giants need a trade piece, they do have them. You can get you can build up what you need to build up during this season and next season, and again, show the Shoheis of the world, the Juan Sotos of the world, that hey, we're trying to build up this organization to compete with the Dodgers, to compete with the Padres. Again, long road ahead, but this is exciting. Always an exciting start. So
Chen Sun Lee is the Taiwanese right-hander.
Oh, Taiwan. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so let's quickly talk about what we are drinking here, and I'm pretty much done. I went to the store today because I had to pick up some stuff for dinner, and I'm a big crock pot guy when it comes to putting dinners together because I
Yes.
love soups and stews.
Do you guys do the Instant Pot? You ever done an Instant Pot?
We do have an Instapot, but I still use it as a slow
Those are good.
cooker.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we do the same, but back and forth. I mean, I
Yes.
say we. I don't do anything. I clean it after. That's what I do.
Yeah, Crystal, you did use the air fryer for the first time over the weekend while we were
Nice.
watching the Niners game. And I went this morning and I was like, okay, I'm going to pick up a scotch. We've been talking about 2023 being the year of the scotch for me. And one of, just watching these videos, and we talk kind of about these utility scotches where you just kind of need it in the house. If you're a scotch drinker, it's not going to be your expensive stuff, but it's just going to be like your really dependable stuff. So the Johnny Walker Black, I went and picked up some Johnny Walker Black. Johnny Walker Black is behind the glass cabinet that you have to get them to unlock. I was kind of surprised about that. I was like,
Interesting.
people are stealing Johnny Walker Black. Which would, but getting the Johnny Walker Black made me wonder, have you ever ordered like a shot of Johnny Walker Blue, which is like $300 a bottle?
I've never done that. You know what? I rarely buy scotch or bourbon from restaurants. Usually if I'm going to get it, it's going to be in a mix of some sort.
Yeah.
There was a place just like a couple blocks away from us before the pandemic. Really nice place to visit. Had great food. It was called the Zephyr here in South Reno. And it just disappeared during the pandemic, was just gone.
That sucks.
But they had an old fashioned that they made with a really good scotch. It was like a 15-year scotch, and I had never had an old fashioned with scotch in it before, and it was so good. I had two one night, and but that's usually how I drink scotch and bourbon, because if I'm just going to get a slug of something, it'll be like, I could do that at home.
Yeah.
But here I'm going to get like something a little bit fancier,
something different. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, so yeah, like my next step will be Glenlivet or something, but I just wanted to have the black, and then the next time I'll look for something else that's a little bit more upscale and see if I can even tell the difference, because still I know that I can tell, definitely taste the difference between scotch and bourbon, very clearly. But now my taste buds, as far as this scotch versus this scotch versus this scotch, that's going to be interesting. I'm still not sure that I'm going to be able to really taste the difference, or even be able to enjoy the the $50 bottle versus the $25 bottle. So we'll see.
Well, and you can really appreciate it more if you go to YouTube and just kind of look at the differences of scotch from the different regions of Scotland. That's kind of what it's all about. The different peats that they use, the different water that they use. Like the Isleys and the Highlands. I like the Highland Scotch the best for me personally. I like the smokier, peatier stuff. So I don't know. Do you like to smell like a campfire? Do you like smoke? Do you like to barbecue with like wood and stuff like that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I'm open to all of those flavors and smells and such.
Good.
That is not something that would steer me like, oh, I don't like that because of
perfect. That. Yeah, because the next one I'm going to send you, you're going to get, the next time you go to the store, you're going to get this one. It's Lafroig, and it's very smoky, very peaty, but that's my number one. And
Yeah.
it's really not too much. I think one bottle is like $50.
Yeah.
So it's not a break the bank, but it is definitely a, kind of savor it for
Yeah.
6
Yeah.
months to a year or so. But that should be your next one, because that'll kind of open you up to, like, you went from this to Johnny Walker to now Lafroig. And then, from there you could branch out. There's so many other areas you can go to. So, yeah.
All right. What about you?
I went with my old standard, my favorite, the Evan Williams, the bottled and bond, the white bottle. It's like, I don't know. I think I got this. I got a $3 off coupon, so I got it for like $11. But it is just, it is knock your socks off good. It's one of those ones that just kind of an old standby to have in the cupboard at all times. You got the Giants drinking glass there, a couple of ice cubes in it. I'm still working on it, because I put 2 ice cubes this time, because we started so early. So I was like, well, I gotta
yeah, that's right.
I gotta slow drink it.
We did start a little early. All right, let's finish off what we were gonna talk about for this show. So the Giants, and this is not even really a segment, but they didn't have to go to arbitration with anybody.
Right.
They got all of their players who were ARB eligible. So they had 13 ARB eligible players to start the season. Start the off season. And they re-signed Scott Alexander and Baby Yaz in November. And this is coming from McCovey Chronicles. I'm just using this as my guide here. And they non-tendered Zach Littell, Jarrell Cotton, and Harleen the Dream. And then
whose birthday it is today? It's
Harleen
Garcia's birthday today. Yes.
Did you have it like written in your calendar or something?
You know what? I started this project a couple of years ago during the podcast where I had a separate calendar in iCloud that was just Giants players' birthdays.
Oh, wow.
The problem now is a lot of these guys who are coming up aren't with the team anymore. So I've got to kind of go back in and redo it.
So they settled with John Brebbia, Jacob Junis, Austin Slater, Tyro Estrada, JD Davis, Lamont Wade Jr., Tyler Rogers, Scott Alexander, Mike Yastrzemski, and Logan Webb. Now, the numbers are depending on like what you think. Like someone like JD Davis, who we saw for half of a year or a little bit less, 4.21 million. And Logan Webb, who's like the ace of their staff, is 4.6 million. But it's all about, how many years and what you made the year before, because if you go into court, it's going to be the player argues for X, the team argues for X or Y, but it's a little bit lower, and you kind of haggle. And this, so I don't know if the Giants had the leverage here. The players had the leverage. All I know is that they did not have anybody go to arbitration, which is good, because imagine if you were arguing against Logan Webb and Logan Webb wanted like 4.8 and you only wanted to give him 4, and you have to argue against him and say why he's only worth 4. That's not cool. Like, it's not great especially in a relationship where this guy's playing for your team. So I'm glad that they settled and they didn't have to go to arbitration for any of these players. So that was really cool.
Yeah. And the Giants were in the practice back in the day of buying years of arbitration and working them into long-term deals. They did that with Bumgarner. I think they did that with Matt Cain also. They did it with Crawford, Posey, and Belt. But the one they couldn't do it with was Timmy. Timmy did not want any arbitration years bought out. He wanted, and then when it was time to renegotiate a contract, he was good with a 1 or 2 year deal. And it hurt him in the end, but he got some big bank at the beginning of his contract. So now he's just, able to chill and do his thing. But yeah, it's pretty amazing that the Giants were able to do that back in the day and just buy out, 2 or 3 years of arbitration from a lot of the big name players that they had. Yeah, I can imagine going to court and saying, well, Webb, I'm sorry, you're just not as good as you think you are. So instead of the 4.8 million, we can give you 4. We can give you 3.8, maybe 4. We think you were 4 good, but not 4.8 good. So yeah, you don't want any hurt feelings coming out of there.
All right, last thing before we get out of here is that on some lists, Kyle Harrison has jumped ahead of Marco Luciano as the Giants' #1 prospect.
Yeah.
Luciano has started a little bit of a decline on these lists as far as like tippy top prospects, because he had been in the top 10 prior 2 years ago, and started to slide out of it a little bit last year. But Harrison has jumped ahead of him in some lists, and I've also seen that some expect him to make his major league debut this year, which is insane to me because of how young this guy is still.
Yeah.
And he hasn't pitched above AA yet. But just, we're talking about Giants don't really have many players that you can buy jerseys of. This kid's 21 years old. He will turn 22 not until August. So he's going to be 21 for almost the whole season. And think about, like, can you see him coming up and making a Giants debut like in July or something? Like that sounds so crazy to me.
But I mean, that's what the Giants did back then. We were just talking about it. Tim Lincecum, Matt Cain, Madison Bumgarner. Those guys were all young kids when they came up.
Yeah.
I think that the thought process has changed. It's been a little more like, well, let's get you enough innings in the minors.
We don't want to start that clock.
Yeah, we don't want to. Yeah, especially you don't want to start the clock. You don't. So if they if that can get changed in the next CBA, I think that would be fantastic. I know they were fighting for a change in that. The players were this past during the lockout and everything, but yeah. I could see him coming up this year, and the Giants need that. They really need that. If you're going to get fans back in the seats, and you're going to get people excited about this club in the future, you got to start bringing up the young kids, especially if the Giants falter out of the gates and the first 2 or 3 months of the season, they're just not playing great baseball. You're going to need spark plugs. You're not going to need a spark plug. You're going to need spark plugs during the season. Kyle Harrison's going to be one of them. Luciano's still probably not this year. But you're going to need to bring up Elio Ramos and say, let's give you 100 at bats.
Yeah. Put up or shut up.
100 consistent at bats and finally see what you got, because, we can't just sit you in AAA and just leave you there forever.
And then you hit 210.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It goes back down, gets upset. Things happen and just doesn't hit well, but he's a good fielder. So that's the thing, is the Giants need defense. So I'd love to see Kyle Harrison. I mean, God, he led the minors, the entire minors last year in Ks per 9.
Yeah.
What did he have last year? 113 innings, 186 strikeouts. I mean, that's ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, maybe he'll get 2 months, 3 months in AAA. You can bet for sure, if he's going to get a start here when they're in Reno, I'm going to definitely make it out for that game. I don't care. The spring here in Reno is so weird. I've been to so many opening days at Aces Ballpark here in Reno in April, where it's either been 70 degrees or snowing at first pitch. So the spring here is it's awful. It's weird. It's all over the place. So, but whatever it is, I'm gonna make it out there. I don't care if I have to bring 3 jackets, which I did. I think I sat in a jacket with plastic over my legs while we, gloves on and the beanie on while you're just watching the game, because they won't call a game for snow. Because snow, it just doesn't get wet enough in the spring. Rain, yes, but snow, no. If it's snowing, you just kind of keep playing. So.
Yeah, the Giants are going to have a lot of starting pitchers. They probably got 7 guys, maybe 8 guys that they could run out there if they needed. But I could see, DeSclafani coming off of a big injury, Wood, guys like that. We're like, let's, we don't want to go through. Let's give those guys an extra day And no, let's bring this kid up and give him a start, and then we'll send him back
Yeah.
down, and we'll see how he sort of feels in the dugout, and how he goes out, and how he attacks, and I could see them doing that, but I would also just love for them to bring him up and just like you're the number 5, like let's just not even mess around.
Well, and he's probably going to have an invite to spring, and if he is just lights out in spring, and they see something, and they could say you're in the 5-man rotation to start this season, how phenomenal! What a boost that would be to the to the fans, to their chances this year. I mean, just everything would kind of rise up a little bit, and the excitement level would go up, because then all of a sudden you're talking about the Webb Harrison 1-2 punch. And that's that is like, we haven't had we had a great 1-2 punch last year, but we also knew it was probably a 1-year 1-2 punch.
Yeah, exactly.
But this is a future. I mean, this will be the first time since Lincecum and Kane that you could say, well, look at this 1-2.
And they know how to market pitchers who are very exciting. Lincecum was the marquee from 2008 all the way through 2011, and until sort of Buster kind of replaced him there. But so they, we had Happy Lincecum Day for several years there. The team knows how to market a very exciting young pitcher. So I'm hopeful for Kyle. All right, we are done here. We'll be back next week. So probably not even barely 5 days from this show. So I sure
we got to start getting some news, shaking the tree for some news.
Exactly. I sure hope we get something, or else we're going to be like, oh, I forgot about this belt memory that I wanted to mention.
Let's talk about Ryan Reckley again.
Yeah, let's talk about Reckley, and let's go over Will Bednar's 2022.
There you go.
So, all right. We will be back next week. Thanks for checking in with us. For Brad, I'm Double GC. When we see you, peace out.
Peace.